When it comes to Linux commands, PS is a Linux essential. So let's get right into it.
PS reports a snapshot of the current processes. And how does it do that? It does that by you working with the proc file system. I'll explain what that means in a moment. Just know that when you're in the manual, this is your source of truth for all of the different parameters that are supported by PS. And you can see this is a quite extensive manual, and there's a lot of parameters that are supported by PS. We won't go over everything, we'll go over a few, but if you're curious about the other parameters that are supported by PS, go ahead and look through the manual. So let's go ahead and start this proc directory. You'll see that there's a whole bunch of random numbers in here. These numbers are process IDs. Every time one of these processes starts up, it's allocated one of these IDs so that it can run in the system and also be killed by the system. This is how the system keeps track of all the processes running. So PS uses the directory to get all of its information. Now, if we look inside the proc directory for one of the processes, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of different files here for each of these folders. And each of these files here contains information about the process. For instance, if we read out the one for proc1 stat, we'd get this random information here. So PS can understand this information and translate it to something that we can read. So if we did that with PS, we would get information about the current processes that are running. I've run PS by itself, so I'm just getting all of the processes that are running in the user namespace. So the user I'm logged in as, all the processes that I started are listed here. You can also add a argument, just give a process ID directly. So for instance, process ID 1, you'll find out that that is called systemd and it's running under process ID 1. So running PS like this is the same as running this with --PID 1. It's just a shortcut. PID standing for process ID. You can also list every single process on the system by using -E. And if we go ahead and pair this up with some other parameters, we can just get the output of just getting the PID of every single process. And if you really wanted to see that in a list that you can have on the screen, you could use TR by piping this in here and replacing a new line with a tab. When you use TR like this, you say find all the new lines and replace them with tabs. And the reason I'm doing this is if I list this against the proc directory, you'll see all the process IDs that are listed here actually match up with all of the process IDs that are listed here in the proc directory. There might be one or two that you might not see, but for the most part, all of the numbers should kind of match here. And that kind of proves that PS is using this directory to get all of its information. So just know that in Linux, process information is stored under the proc directory. So now back to running PS. You might see PS run like this. People might use -E to list everything and F for full formatting. Then they might pipe it into grep to grep for a specific command. There's also a shorter way to do this, and before we go on to that, just notice that when we're grepping for fish, we also get a result for our grep command where we're actually grepping for the term fish. You can also do the same thing by using -C and saying fish. Then we'll come back with every single process that matches fish. You can also pair this up with other commands. So you can just say, for instance, give me every single process and just give me something like -O, just give me an output of com equals, which will give you the name of every single process here. So why would you want to use PS? Well, PS is useful for if you want to get a process ID that you might want to kill. For instance, let's say if we wanted to kill the fish process, we could go here and get one of these process IDs and we could go ahead and say use the kill command to go ahead and kill that process. And we can copy and paste that. But there's also another way of doing this. For instance, say I wanted to kill all of the different fish processes. I could go ahead and say, give me all the fish processes, output that with just the PID, and then I want to pass that with xargs. So we're using a pipe here, which like we mentioned a few times here. I'm going to take the results of this PID, which should just be all of these PIDs here, and for each one of them, I want you to kill the process. What's the worst that could happen? Whoops.
To summarize what we learned today, processes when they're spawned in Linux end up with a process ID, and they are categorized and sorted out inside of the proc directory in the file system. PS reads from this directory and gives us useful information that's human readable to us that we can use in our day-to-day life. If you find value out of that, you know which buttons to press. And until next time, you'll find your next video over here.